But you're right about the resale value, because we've got a bunch of EVs who are about to come out of warranty, and you wonder what the value is at that point, where at any minute when you buy it, if the battery fails, some of these EVs, the batteries cost over $40,000.
Well, that's quite right. If you buy an antique car, maybe a car that's 60 or 80 years old, the value goes up. Every other car you have, the value goes down. But if you want it to go down absolutely rapidly and drop through the floor, get yourself an EV, because the cost of replacing the batteries is horrendous. You've only got to touch the underside on the curb, and there are no technicians that know how to repair that. So you scrap the whole car. These cars are wonderful if you want to drive a couple of kilometres a day and go to the shops and feel morally superior, not telling people how slave labour created the cobalt for your car, if you live in the centre of the city. But if you live where you have to travel great distances, such as in rural Australia, or you want to plough a field, an electric vehicle is totally and absolutely useless and a waste of money.
They're ideal for those teal seats, those affluent inner city areas where, you know, the ladies might just be driving a couple of kilometres to lunch and back, and that's ideal. Now, to one of the funniest stories of the month, the UK Telegraph reports eco-friendly brake cables are being eaten by foxes after manufacturers switch from petroleum-based insulation to soy, forcing owners to wrap their cars in tarpaulins. Look at that car wearing a nappy right there. Since 2000, peanut and soy-based oils and waxes have been used on car parts, including gearbox insulation, primer bulbs and diesel injector wires. And the foxes don't mind a taste of this sort of insulation, Ian.
Well, you couldn't make up stories like this.
No,
I mean, it's just fabulous. Now, if I were a fox, this would be terrific, because you'd get free tucker, you don't have to go hunting. And the second thing is you get in underneath the car, you keep yourself warm. And the third thing is quite often they have a pan underneath, so you can actually sleep in that pan. Oh. So I think these people are rewilding nature by having soya and peanut butter or Vegemite cables on their vehicles. I think it's terrific.
The foxes are enjoying it, that's for sure.
What can possibly go wrong?
Now, an interesting piece in the scientific journal Nature entitled "The Importance of Distinguishing Climate Science from Climate Activism." Ulf Bunkton writes, "I'm concerned by climate scientists becoming climate activists, aren't we all? I see potential conflicts when scholars use information selectively." Oh, yes, this is all very problematic. Yeah. He also writes, "Without self-critique and a diversity of viewpoints, scientists will ultimately harm the credibility of their research and possibly cause a wider public, political and economic backlash." He's going to get attacked for this piece, but he's 100% right. You can't have scientists corrupting science with politics. This is where they lose faith. We saw it with COVID, and we've certainly seen it with climate change.
Well, I used to be an avid reader and subscriber to Nature, and when it turned into an activist journal, I gave up. So I'm surprised that such an article appears in an activist journal. But when a climate scientist can show me about human emissions, then I will believe that they're not activists. And what they've got to show me is half a dozen scientific papers that demonstrate that human emissions drive global warming. They've never done that. So as soon as you talk about humans and climate, you are an activist. So almost by definition, climate science, whatever that is in their language, climate science is an activist venture. So the climate scientists have to show that human emissions drive global warming. They haven't done that. And if they did do that, they then have to show that the natural emissions, which are 97% of the total, don't drive warming. So I think climate science is an activist activity, rather like many areas of sociology, like gender studies. That is certainly not an area of scholarship. It's an area of activism.
I would have to point out there'd be very many climate scientists who would disagree with you naturally.
Well, that's because they live off frightening us witless.
Well, I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm just saying there's a lot of climate scientists activists who might disagree with you. Before you go, I've got to bring to your attention this fantastic piece from The Guardian 20 years ago. We often talk about climate catastrophising on this show, about these doomsday predictions. And let's go down memory lane to 20 years ago when this article appeared in The Guardian warning climate change over the next 20 years could result in a global catastrophe, costing millions of lives in wars and natural disasters. That was published February 22 in 2004. It's been 20 years, Ian. Another catastrophist warning that came to nothing. But now we've got energy policies being designed because of these predictions. We've had these predictions of doom and gloom for decades, but it seems like now the politicians are taking them extra seriously.
Well, if you read The Guardian, you get what you deserve. And the second thing is that we've had thousands of years of people predicting the end of the world by some catastrophe, and in each case they've been wrong, and if just one of them was right, we wouldn't be here. So I think when you've got to shout out about a catastrophe, then your argument is a very, very weak one. Science is married to evidence, and I have yet to see the evidence that human activities drive a major planetary process called climate change, let alone a catastrophic change.